Welcome back to part two of the interview with the late, great Alan Tomkins, art director extraordinaire. We continue the pre-recorded interview from 2017. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and spread the word. We're small, but we're growing, and we're trying to make this the place to be to come to for industry interviews and advice on all things creative. So thanks very much for your support in advance. And enjoy the second part of this interview with the late, great Alan Tomkins.
Well, there you go then. Live fast, die young.
This is part two of our Facebook Live with Alan Tomkins, who shouldn't need any introduction, especially if you watched part one, but he was art director on Empire Strikes Back, Saving Private Ryan, Bridge Too Far, to name but a few, Memphis Belle, Hanover Street, Die Another Day. We're here at Pinewood Studios. I'm here with producer Tony Fadil from Paratrooper, myself, Lance Nielsen, writer-director, one of the other producers from Paratrooper, with Alan Tomkins, and we were talking about the Bridge Too Far. If you do have any questions for Alan, do fire them away, any questions or comments. Jay hopefully will relay them to us.
There, behind the camera, the other side.
So we're just talking about Bridge Too Far, and we're talking about the attack coming over the bridge. Yeah. Now, was that, when you watched that, that looks like that was filmed with like multiple cameras, 3 or 4 cameras, all in one go, in one day. Is that true?
True, absolutely true.
Okay, I thought
David Tomlin was one of the absolute top first assistant directors, and he always worked with Dickie Attenborough, and he got it all rehearsed and fine-tuned. And when they shouted action, I mean, there was so much going on. You know, for all the cameras, all in one go. But it was always known as the big scene for Grabner's charge. So you never forget the name of the guy who was getting sort of stuck up in his little tank.
There is a question, were the Jeeps in Bridge Too Far Hotchkiss?
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
Not
Chris
all
Nichols.
Of them.
Not all of them. One or two.
Yeah, fantastic. Did you know that Grabner's actual vehicle in reality was a captured British car? And that's what he charged over the bridge with. I don't know. That's a little known fact.
No,
No,
we built it.
And if I'd been the art director and I'd had a decision between putting him in a German car or a captured British one, I would have put him in a German car, because otherwise people in the audience would have gone, "That's a naff converted British blah blah." Well, he wouldn't have been in one of those. But apparently the true story is that he had a captured some sort of British car from Normandy. I think it might have been a Humber or some sort of armoured car.
But he was in a little armoured car coming over. I can't remember the German code.
He was in a German German Hanomag.
Yeah.
I mean, they had loads of German Hanomags. I think it just so happened that he was in a.
And afterwards, it was purchased by one of the rental companies that hire out. And dare I say, it's the first time you hear it here. It also became the little tank on Hello, Hello.
There you go. Hearing it here first. Oh, we've got a bit of sun coming in now. So Alan's going to positively glow in a golden way, as he should. You were nominated for an Oscar, weren't you, once?
Yes, that was for Empire Strikes Back. And we'd actually, they won, the art department had won on the first Star Wars, and this being the second, even though there was nothing kept, we had to rebuild everything from photographs and drawings. There's a few props left, but we had to start again. But nevertheless, to get the same award twice, I didn't even prepare a speech. But going to the Oscars was quite a fun deal, because they pay for you to stay in obviously a top hotel. Dolly Parton was up for 9 till 5, and I went down at 4 o'clock. I mean, you have to be there and sitting there for like an hour and a half before actual live show starts. So I went down and they said, it's all been cancelled. I said, what do you mean? They said, oh, someone's taken a pot shot at Reagan and they don't think they're going to run it tonight. We'll keep you posted. So I went back to my room and, got all my dinner suit and everything on.
Extra night at the hotel. Sounds good to me.
And when Reagan recovered sufficiently from his bullet wound that he heard they cancelled, he said, you must go ahead tomorrow. He said, I'm going to pull through this, I'll be fine. Luckily, being an actor himself.
I was going to say, grand actor himself.
Anyhow, so that was it. So it was false alarm. So you build up all that excitement to go again the next day. And I went down at the same time, 4 o'clock, and I'm sitting in the lobby, and they said, car for Mr. Tomkins. So I said, they said outside. So I go outside, and of course, what I thought was Dolly Parton's stretch white limo. I mean, I'd never seen too many stretch white. I mean, now they're much more common, but then. So I came back. I said, "There's only Dolly Parton's car out." They said, "No, that's for you." So it was quite.
Dolly's driving.
Yeah.
Dolly's in the back.
Dolly's in the
Special treat for Art Director Alan Tomkins.
Yeah. Anyhow, that was quite exciting. And then when, of course, you get there and you walk down that red carpet with about 1,000 press, all taking pictures and all saying to it, who's that? I don't know him.
I have to say that we do love a bit of Dolly Parton.
We love Dolly.
Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. What a film!
She was lovely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I've heard she's a really lovely lady. So going back to historical stuff, which I'm sure our viewers will be more attuned to, let's talk about the gliders for Bridge Too Far, because the interior of one of the gliders, which I believe you built, is now a little kind of combat Colbert Museum, and down in southwest somewhere. And in fact, the
Cornwall.
Cornwall. The owners of that offered us the use of that glider set for a previous film we were working on. We're not using any. There's no gliders in Paratrooper in the pilot. I just need to say that in the pilot. But yeah, I mean, building that must have been a challenge, because I think you had to build it from scratch, didn't you? And you had to build a few full-size ones for the outside.
The only original interior of a Horsa glider is in the Salisbury Hall Museum, where they built the first prototype Mosquito during the war. And I went over there, and it was discovered with an old three-wheeler Morgan, using it as a garage with a ramp to go in it. So how this guy got it in his, quite a few of the gliders were brought back from Arnhem, because they had this snatch wire that you could wire them up. The plane would fly over and snatch the glider and take it off. When you think, to make those gliders, what they cost and all that, and just to leave them there and set fire to them, because they didn't want the Germans, obviously. But an interesting thing I actually read very recently, when the idea was put forward to have paratroopers, not so much gliders, paratroopers in the commandos, it was all poo-pooed. They said that it would be awful to let them drop down into enemy territory. And then, of course, the Russians did it successfully, then the Germans are doing it. And then they said, what a good idea. So all those sort of stuffy old shirts up in Whitehall, when someone really knows what's going to be successful, anyhow, it was the same with the gliders. They thought the gliders were going to be a complete disaster. So did Dickie Attenborough when I said, can we do some sort of quarter full-size model radio controls? Because we never had a glider landing. I mean, that's, to me, was a scene that everybody wanted to see. A few gliders actually landed. Anyhow, he said it'd be a fiasco.
You do see some getting pulled along the runways. Are those miniatures in Bridge Too Far?
No, we had them to tow along the runway.
Yeah.
And that was quite easy to do, because we had the tow ropes, which are really thick, great proper ropes.
So remember you had the shot of them kind of looping, didn't you?
And out of the 11 Dakotas we had, there were at least, I think, 4 that had the little canvas bag at the back, and when you pop the studs, inside was this great big ring to clip the tow ropes on, and we knew exactly the length of the tow ropes, and then we towed them down the runway. Now the ones in the air, we did it Dunstable from a front of a glider, looking down the rope as the Dakota goes off. So we covered all those shots, but I always thought some gliders coming into land quarter full size, because I'd seen a quarter full size Dakota at one of the air shows.
But Dickie vetoed that
no, he
idea.
thought it was going to be a bit of a
Too dangerous.
well, yeah, he might not get. Spent a lot of money, might not get what he wanted.
Might have been a glider too far.
A glider.
But
Also the tit.
they were as much problem building them as building all the houses around the bridge.
Yeah.
Basically because they're all plywood originally, and you just had to admire the design of them, because we thought we could thin the ribs out, because it's not going in the air with all the stresses and strains. So if the ribs were every sort of 30 centimetres, we would do them 60 centimetres.
Yeah.
But of course, the integrity of the wings at 80 feet, that's 40 foot on each wing sticking out. When it was a damp morning in Holland, they'd sink down and almost touch the runway.
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't risk that. So we had to cut channels right across
put a
the
big
top,
iron bar,
and
didn't
we
you?
put a RSJ right across to keep them up, and then covered it all over again.
With the houses next to the bridge in Deventer, there's the one, of course, that Anthony Hopkins kind of knocks on the door. Right, lads, we're in here.
Yeah.
Was it just one of the houses that you built that had an interior that you could go into?
That was designed from the script, really, that he needed to take control of a house.
Yeah.
And we shipped out all the balustrading that came out the seam dock in Pinewood, so we didn't have to turn up all the balustrade going up the stairs.
Right.
And the old lady there is a lovely scene where she, that's a magic scene.
Yeah.
But it was built, for real. But outside, we also had to have pieces where we could have, shell hits and polystyrene bricks and all that and get blown out.
Yeah. How many days were you filming around the base of the bridge with all the fighting there and all that stuff? Was that quite a few?
Yeah,
a couple of weeks.
Oh, at least a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But I was very lucky, because I'd gone out with the painters one night on a sort of bender, and we got lost and came through an area, and in the headlights I could see completely trashed trees, like it had been bombed. But so I looked on the map in the morning. I went back there in the daylight. This was a fantastic location for the one where
with the Jeep when he's
the
driving
Jeep
round.
and he's trying to take the guy with the bullet in his head.
To the doctor.
Yeah. You remember when he's driving all through the trees, they've all been completely trashed.
Yeah.
So you heard it here first. Alan Tomkins found that location on a bender while he was out one night with a crew member.
Creative genius.
Some things don't
Yeah.
change. Benders still go on today.
And that's how it ended up in the film.
Yeah, there's a lesson for you.
What's any questions in there?
No questions, but Chris Nicholas sticking with us. He says this is amazing. He used to watch these films with his dad, and it's generational but totally awesome. And
Guys,
he's a gentleman who became a paratrooper from this. So yeah.
Chris
Really?
Nichols
Hello,
is
30
actually-
Corps, he
Chris
says. Hello,
Nichols
30
is,
Corps.
our medic who's
Oh,
on our
right.
shoot on the 13th. Anyone
Oh,
watching
is that
this?
Chris?
Anyone watching this? Please share it. Share it on your Facebook Live.
Share it
now.
live now, actually,
Share it
guys.
live now. People will want to see.
What's,
Alan, I've got a controversial question to ask you about Saving Private Ryan. This is something that comes up in conversations all the time. So we're going to see if we can drill down to what happened here. So everybody always talks about the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan being the best thing in cinema and da-da-da. I'm not going to, I completely agree with that. I actually like the whole film. I personally, I'm going to put my neck out and say I actually like the scene at the end with the tigers and everything. I know that SS and tigers were not in that part of Normandy fighting the Americans. For me, in the world of Saving Private Ryan, because I'm not watching a specific historical battle, it's kind of a bit fantasy.
Yes.
It doesn't bother me that much. But I'd like to ask you, because I'm sure a lot of people watching would like to know, whose decision was it that, okay, the Americans are going to be fighting the best Germans, the SS, and we're going to have tiger tanks here, because we know the Americans didn't fight any units like that at that time. So who made that decision? Because somebody must have put their
came
hand
from
up.
the top. Spielberg,
Right.
He just wanted tiger tanks because, in fact, when I was in Ireland preparing with all the other guys, the beach obstacles and the pillboxes.
Yeah, that was shot in Southern Ireland. For
Southern Ireland.
Anybody watching who doesn't know, Irish coast of Galway, I think.
Because we had access to a lot of the Irish army who were prepared to come and play all the troops. So I was asked, can you go back to meet Spielberg when he comes over? Now this was only 2 days before we were going to shoot, and because he'd been cut in AI and he just wasn't available. So we'd never seen him. We had one conference call, which I'll tell you about later.
This is before filming. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously you saw him when he was on set, just to clarify.
Yeah. No. So I left my wife in Ireland. I went back and had that funny feeling of ringing her from my house, and she was on the location where we were in Ireland. So the next morning I got to Hatfield early. They said, well, Spielberg, he's just mad to see the Tiger tanks. We want you here to give him a call around. So I took him round and showed him, and he said, oh, are these the right size? I said, within that much, sir. I said, because there's a Tiger tank in captivity, as it were, in Bovington, although it was at that time, it's now a runner, but at that time it was a non-runner. So we were able to, take the sizes, but also had, an amazing amount of drawings of Tiger tank. So I know it was within, a centimetre of the real thing. He said that it looked so small. So I said, well, when they draw them in comics, which you've all, if you're into warfare, you all have all these war comics. I said, they do tend to make them look bigger and more menacing. Yeah, you're probably right. So he was satisfied, and I was quite happy.
But it was his decision that there should be Tiger tanks in the movie.
Yeah, because it wasn't a factual.
Is that as
story.
opposed to Panzers or what?
Well, no, it's just that there were Tiger is a very specific German tank.
Yeah.
And they were fighting in very specific
The most
parts of Normandy, and
successful
they were up against the British predominantly. The Americans, where they were fighting, there wasn't any German armoured units. They had armour, but they didn't have Tiger tanks, and there weren't any SS in that part of Normandy either. Because it's
basically because all the bridges were blown, they couldn't get there. Yeah. They moved them all up the coast on a false errand that we laid down for them, and they couldn't get back because, even Pegasus Bridge was, all wired up to explode, but thankfully they never had to do it.
So you designed all the set for Saving Private Ryan, as well as
not design. There was a production designer, and he gives you the sketches.
Yeah, and then you built it.
Yeah.
You make the practical. Yeah, you make it
and
real,
then
don't you? That's the designer has
Alan
the
went
idea.
out with his hammer and nails.
The carpenters
one night.
need a drawing for everything, whatever it is, and you're the go-between between the construction boys and the designer. Now the designer can come back and obviously change his mind a million times, which it's part and parcel of the job. But they're normally quite happy if you just crack on, get on with it. They look and say, "Oh yeah, that's pretty good."
Yeah. Do you tend to work with the same production designers over your films? It was a different one for each film.
Yeah.
So we do have a question about how you wanted to become an art director, which I kind of know was a coincidence, wasn't it? Or it was actually happenstance,
yes,
really?
It started because when I left school, I made a lot of models, and my father was really good at drawing, and I did a lot of drawings and stuff. So I took the full 6 weeks job, and then all the apprenticeships. Model makers in Hunting Aero Service was a factory close to me. They've got room for 2 apprentices per season, and they were gone. So in desperation to get a job, I went to the youth employment officer in Barnet, and he said, well, what about a chef on the liner? And I said, no, I'm not really good at even cooking toast. I thought, well, the vision is you're in the tropics, looking out a porthole,
Yes.
eating potatoes.
Neither are they good at. They're not very good on toast either.
Exactly. So I thought, no, that's not for me. So he said, well, my cousin is the personnel manager at Elstree Studios, but they never have anything. But I'll give him a ring. And as luck would have it, the lad who was there, who was very talented, had actually just been fired because he was a bit of a teddy boy and always in trouble, stealing cars, no insurance, crashing them, always up in court, and they let him go.
Sounds like someone else I know.
Anyhow,
Sounds like a film.
to tell you the value of this guy, his sketches, when Barbara Streisand came over to do Yentl, they asked him to do 12 presentations for her to get the money, And the Warner Brothers man said to me, without those sketches, she would never have got the money to make the movie. So he was talented, nevertheless. Anyhow, having gone there, I started at £2, 10 shillings a week, and they said if you're good after 4 weeks, we'll put your money up to £3. So I thought, wow, that's pretty good, isn't it? So I was bending over backwards to please. Yeah, it was good then. Yeah. So that's how I got started.
So you always had some artistic skills. You always had an interest in the art side
and
of
I loved,
drawing.
Drawing, and they started to teach me how to draft on the board.
Going back to Saving Private Ryan, which I'm sure is going to be of interest to people out there. The sets that were built, both on the beach scene and the village, which of course doubled as various different bits. How practical was the beach set? Could you go in all the bunkers, or was there just the one with the machine guns in it, or could you go in all the different bits?
I think we only had one that was practical inside for some shots looking out.
That's right, yeah.
There's an incredible shot in one of the real bunkers at the cemetery, the American cemetery, which is up on top now. It's a hallowed piece of ground given to the Americans.
Yeah.
And it's manned by American Army all the time.
Yeah.
And it is a wonderful place to go, and you
I've
just
been there.
see the crosses.
Yeah.
And not only were Private Ryan was obviously a fictitious character, but 4 brothers are in that cemetery.
Yeah. I've seen it.
And there's 2 or 3 with 2 brothers.
Yeah.
So it did happen quite often.
Very. And you filmed at that cemetery as well.
Oh yeah, the beginning and the end. Was it the beginning or
beginning and at the end.
Beginning and at the end.
And was that a difficult thing for the production to negotiate, getting into that
I
place?
keep well away from the production and their tricky negotiations.
But you must have heard. You must have heard about it.
Well, I think because it was honouring
they were cooperative and
they were very cooperative.
Yeah.
And obviously well controlled when you let a film unit into something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a hell of a job doing the Jeep advert it's the first time they were allowed to film on Utah Beach for an advert going out with Saving Private Ryan.
Right.
So we got the French to provide all the vehicles, and we made up some cross irons and all that and put on the beach there. And when they came in, I said, "You're the wrong size." And they're the wrong size. They said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Well, you get to know exactly that they were all about 6 inches on the cross arms too short." So when I now go to the big museum at Utah Beach, there's all these crosses all too short because we gave them to them. Not many people know that.
Props from the film.
Can I ask Bridge Too Far? I imagine from the art department it was all challenging. What were some of the biggest challenges you had from this? Because some of the scenes that I was seeing
Tony watched Bridge Too Far for the first time a week ago.
He's let the secret out.
Me too, Tony.
He said, "Have you ever seen this film?" I said, "I haven't actually." He said, "You need to see this before we start shooting." And I said to him, I was amazed.
I made him watch it.
Considering the time it was that you shot in and what we've got on how advanced we are today, the size of the battle scenes were impressive. Overly, but even with today's standards, really, they were amazing.
And that parachute jump was all done for real. The one in Band of Brothers that you see is mostly CGI.
Yeah, so
350 paratroopers.
What was
on
the
that
biggest
job.
challenges from your department that you had when doing that?
What, the parachute drop
In
itself?
the actual film itself, some of the biggest challenges that you had on Bridge Too Far?
Well, we were in Holland the whole time. The whole film was done over there, and it was quite a long, lengthy location. But the parachute drop, it said on I've kept a copy of the call sheet. It says art department on set at 2 a.m. So I went to the production manager. I said, "What constitutes night work then? It's an hour to drive to the location, so I'm leaving I had a house. I rented a house there. I'm leaving there at 1 o'clock in the morning." He said, "Oh no, that's just going to be our day work." Well, the day work went on and on and on until we did 2 big drops, and we were all under camouflage nets because you couldn't get out of the way. There were so many cameras on the wing of the plane, shooting at the door.
Wow.
Helmet cameras all over the place. So it was well covered, and I'm sure a lot of that must be in stock somewhere.
Yeah.
To be.
How many
picked
people
up.
were on that drop?
350.
350 parachuters.
And the Ministry
One
of,
take.
yeah, the Ministry
Yeah,
gave it
they had to do another one.
a name.
Because the light wasn't good.
Yeah, they gave it a name as a, give every battle practice a name, don't they?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the name while I'm talking, but I can't. Anyhow, what happened was I was looking for locations years later, and I went to the Army training ground at Salisbury Plain. Oh, for Soldier, the TV series. And there was a clock tower there, all built, Foley, like I said, for the Army to train in. All the stairs going up in every house were metal, because you imagine boots in training going up and down with the wall that wouldn't come down. And they had basements, and they were all done. They said, well, it's basically Northern Ireland we were having problems with at the time. Southern Ireland, and the fighting there. So the thing was that I went there and had to meet this guy, and when I went up the clock tower to meet him, it was the guy who arranged all the paratroopers under this.
Oh, the jump on that. Oh.
Yeah, amazing.
For the
Wow.
Bridge to
Yeah.
Small World.
Jenkins, I think his name, but it's all in the book.
Did you work on the construction of the Ice Palace on Die Another Day? That was
No.
that was an amazing set.
Yeah, it was up on the back lot.
Yeah, was that here? Was it? Was
Yeah,
that the back lot
all
here?
the back lot here.
Incredible.
No, that was Scotty. He did all the sketches and the drawing, and then at last minute they said, "Can we go up the stairs to the next level with the cars?" Well, of course, with the steps like they were in ice, we had to put little ramps in for the chase and all that. But and you're always worried, like, oh, it's going to look like. And of course, when it's all cut together, it's all happening, and it just all blends in. Yeah.
That's something that people need to bear in mind, because we're going to be doing Facebook Lives from our set on the 13th when we do our first day of filming, and people can be very judgmental when they see behind the scenes shots, because they go, oh, that doesn't look right, and why does that look such a... But what you see behind the scene and what you see in the final production are two very different things.
That's the magic of showbiz.
So-
Smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and
Smoke
mirrors.
and mirrors,
That's the one.
indeed.
It
So
is.
Alan was also art director on Empire Strikes Back. I'm sure we've got a few Star Wars fans there. We're
Loads
going to
of
have to
questions.
wrap fairly soon, because we're all going to get burnt to death otherwise.
We've got a £50.
But someone's put £50 on.
Oh,
I
we can
think
do better than
that's looking very good
Get
for
the
one
spelling
bloke
of
there.
their name right, because
Yeah.
if it's in Woodjawadaya, I wouldn't know how to spell it.
Yeah.
Guys,
so-
don't forget to like and share this while you're on page and live with us now. Like and share it, spread it out. We've
So-
still got the Indiegogo campaign running as well, but we're
Yeah.
in one of the most historical places, and I'm in my element here. Some of the stuff that's been shot here in Pinewood's absolutely fantastic. With one of the most renowned art directors as well. What can you say?
in British film cinema
absolutely
history.
fantastic.
Yeah, I first came here on Cleopatra.
Yeah.
That was my first film with Elizabeth Taylor, and sadly I was in awe, because it was the biggest set probably they ever built outside, apart from the big volcano set, was an inside thing for the bomb. I mean, and Alexandria with the lakes, and it was incredible.
There's photos of it in the corridor. in
Yeah,
fact.
there's a picture of it in the book, and
Yeah.
the little block in the bottom left-hand corner of the photo is J Block, where we did all the James Bond films, looking out towards it. And it was, for me, always when I see something like that, you feel like there was a character in one of the early comics called Jimmy and his Magic Patch. You just get, he used to do his magic patch and go off, and there's the round heads going over the drawbridge and the castle, and you think, God, this is...
So you felt basically you travelled through time and
Absolutely.
you were looking at the real sets.
Amazing.
It must
what
be fantastic.
What people do for films.
What did you think of? So Alan, you were one of the first people to read the Paratrooper script, because I sent it to Alan to get
Right.
his opinion
Yeah.
before I even sent it to any of the producers. What did you think of it?
Well, it's silly to say I was impressed, but I was really impressed. The writing you do is so good. I mean,
That's
is.
not the only script of mine that Alan's read. He's
No.
read a few of my scripts.
Even the Pegasus Bridge stuff. I mean, I knew the story backwards because I'd read every book on Pegasus Bridge, and everything was in there. And there's all the elements, and you think, well, what's he left out? No, it was all in there, and it all worked. Of course, you can't just put the scene. You've got to have dialogue to, fill it all up. And
So-
he's really good. He should stick to.
And as I've
script
always
writing.
said, guys, as a writer, creator,
Oh,
and
you should see me
director,
directing. I'm
I've
good at that
always
too.
said this to you. With Lance's background, is historically is correct. I mean, he's studied this for years, but his writing, it's a page turner. I've said that as an actor as well. When I pick stuff up and I read scripts as an actor, I turn and turn, and it's a page turner. You don't put it down.
It's a pace of getting it all right.
I was very conscious of the fact that I wanted to make the Paratrooper script very different from Pegasus Bridge, which Pegasus Bridge was Bridge Too Far was the template for that script. Paratrooper, I wanted it to feel much more personal, much more like the story of the war through one man's eyes, and you really to get the emotional journey with him, because Pegasus was very much an ensemble piece script. This Paratrooper, the first episode is Cornell's story, and I guess to a lesser extent some of the people that he knew, like Private Perry, Ron Perry, of course, who was a dear friend of mine, and then Michael McGee, who's being played by a fantastic actor called Alex Reese, who's currently filming in Portugal right now. Hello Alex, if you're watching. We've got actor David Wayman playing Major Taylor, Jacob Anderton is playing Captain Webber. These guys are all filming on the 13th. We're speaking to different people about Cornell, and we're seeing some actors for Cornell on Friday, so we may be able to make an announcement about Cornell fairly soon. We'll see. We're also casting Cornell's brother, so but we've got some actors that you'd know, of course, in the pilot as well. Jason Fleming, who I believe you've met before. He certainly remembers meeting you. Danny Webb, who was in Alien 3 and has been at Pinewood many times and on many shows. We've got Will Johnson, who used to be in Waking the Dead with Trevor Eve. We've got Sharon Duncan Brewster, who used to be in Bad Girls, was in the Doctor Who episode Waters of Mars. If you saw that episode where the water's dripping from everybody's mouths, quite a scary one that was with David Tennant. And we've got a really fantastic cast lined up.
And you've got me, and he knows me now, look, today.
Tony Fadil is also in there. Yeah, he's in there. We had about 3 different roles in mind for Tony in the end, and he said, I'd like the one where I get to shout at people. So we cast him.
And wear a little tash like this.
Bit of a
Cast
tash.
him at the RSM. Yeah, he's keeping that. You're keeping that tash. You're wearing that tash well, actually. I'm not sure I'm going to be
got a
used
whole
to you
beard, didn't I?
without the
We've always
tash.
also got a 75 pounds
really?
coming in. That's
Oh,
great.
wow.
That's
Getting better now,
amazing.
we're
Going
talking.
well,
There's a
going
couple
well.
of bids for Alan's book there.
A
That's
couple of art directing questions. Can we ask?
Yes,
what would your
absolutely.
most favourite? I mean, do you have one that you
Well,
felt,
as I say,
or something,
Memphis Belle I'd have done for free.
or even something that maybe that was something that you thought, yeah, that's a little, you turned something around that
Well,
you.
you know, all
On all of them, you have to-
Saving Private
Who was
Ryan.
your favourite?
doing
Who
the
was your
beach.
favourite director? One that you just really enjoyed working with, and maybe listened to your ideas, and was
Well, it probably
the
was
biggest
yeah,
collaborator.
it probably was Oliver Stone, because he doesn't get on with too many people.
Wow.
And I'm an English guy being dropped in, and when you go over to, like, when I say Hollywood, which is, I thought I'd never be working over there, I mean, they love the English accent, and they just love the. You could probably go over there and know nothing, just the English accent would get you through. But the guy I replaced after Universal Soldier, he wanted to go back to his family.
This is JFK.
Yeah, JFK.
Alan came in very last minute to
Last
replace someone
minute.
who was missing his family.
And there was a location we couldn't find, and they said, "Oh, you know, Oliver Stone, he likes you or he don't, blah blah blah." So I've got nothing to lose, and I can go back to England and they can replace it. So I put up lots of really good ideas that he hadn't even thought of, which are all in the book, like the Texas School Book Depository.
I couldn't believe, actually, also a lot of the shots that you see of that with the electronic sign up on the top of the
It's all
beginning
a model.
is a model,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the real thing, and that's just incredible.
Well,
I
that's
never
the sort
would've-
of thing you have to
Yeah.
think out the box.
Yeah.
And the model in the courtroom, I got it priced up, and it was about $30,000, because actors, I was always told from an early day, they like something with a prop
To
rather
point
than
at.
do nothing.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't know where the grassy knoll was. Most people don't, unless you live in and around Dallas. So I said, I'm sure it would be very helpful. He said, well, price it up. So I came back to $30,000. Oh, crikey, so I'm not spending that. I said, well, I'll do all the base and all the roads, and I'll just get the houses built. And I got it down to $8,000, right? So I actually went back
Tony
to
would be
him
impressed with that.
really pleased.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm absolutely thrilled. I can tell you now, I've got the price tag. He said, no, it's still too much. I said, I tell you what, at that point I was so disappointed. Words came out, and as they were coming out, I'm thinking, I'm not saying these. I said, look, I'll do it. If you don't shoot it, I'll pay for it myself. And then I got a call from Victor Kempster to say that your money's safe. It's 3 times in the film.
I think a good question would be, well, especially from an art department thing, a lot of people, what advice would you give to people that are coming into to your today? Really,
art directors, prop builders.
Yeah, well, you know,
especially advice about them building props very cheaply or for free.
exactly.
Would be good.
The first thing is that
Did you have to sleep your way to the top?
it's difficult to come in straight as art director. You've got to have a bit of grounding, and you know, the youngsters, I say, there's a school here, one at Beaconsfield, and one at St Albans that do film craft. I've been to St Albans twice and sat there for all the students going up and getting their degrees, and then have to do a little chat to them. I mean, you see all these, you know, well, they're women that by then they're finishing, you know, and the guys all walking up and shaking hands, getting. You think this is the next generation that's going to take us forward. It's quite impressive, quite incredible now. I mean, you know, the amount of progress on AI. I mean, now they're saying they can do all open heart surgery and all that now. And
Hopefully not required for our production.
No.
Hopefully.
the surgeon
learning
just sits there
drawings,
with a TV.
sorry.
He doesn't have to even shake his hand.
Yeah, it's all, like you say, a lot of computer-generated drawings, but
absolutely.
hand drawings, you'd still rate that because a quick sketch
Absolutely.
always sells your idea, a visual
Absolutely.
idea. Yeah,
You're
for
absolutely
sure.
right.
I think
Yeah.
you need to have that. You need to have that slight touch of art in you.
We
I think,
we
'cause my
should-
drawings are terrible. I'm still making matchstick men, cats and dogs because
We
I
should
just don't
mention
draw.
our props
Take money
guy.
on
We should mention Neil King, who actually wanted to be here today. We're meeting him later, funnily enough, at our location. Our props guy, Neil King, he's a massive World War II guy. He's actually got a huge collection, Alan, of stuff at
He's a huge Helen fan.
RAF
actually, so-
Twinwood.
Oh,
He's
right,
RAF
yeah,
Twinwood.
yeah, very
And
fan
he
as
says you're
Yeah.
very welcome.
Up the control tower there is perfect reproduction.
Well, I know, and unfortunately they're not going to let us film there. The owner of Twinwood.
Yet,
That's
yet,
possible?
not yet. They
It's
may.
been leased to MOD or something. So for something,
Yeah.
and we were. But Neil has a little museum there with the barracks and all sorts of things, and he says you and your wife are very welcome to come up and have a look sometime.
He's a big fan.
If you-
Yeah,
he's a really big fan. He'd love to show you his collection of vehicles and things. They've got
And
a
it's-
couple of vehicles there.
It's amazing down there. It really
Yeah,
is
it's
amazing.
some really nice
Really
selection of
amazing.
stuff. It's only open on Sundays, and they only get about 20 people on a typical Sunday. If you're an enthusiast and you're watching RAF Twinwood, it's in the Bedfordshire area. Also where they host the Twinwood Festival, which I think's just finished. I
Yeah.
think it was on this week. That's on every year, of course. But if you fancy popping along to the museum,
Yeah.
it's well worth visiting.
We'll get a link up at some point
I've-
for the actual museum.
I put it up actually. The link is up. I put it up last week to advertise the festival. If you scroll down the timeline, past all our thank yous, probably
If you
about
can't
30
find
posts.
it, we'll redo again. Don't
But
worry, we'll put it up.
but
on Facebook.
Google-
Or Neil probably will.
Google RAF Twinwood Museum and you will find it. Well worth going. We did want to use it as a location for paratroopers. Sadly, we got a no on that, which is a big shame. But I think we're going to go to RAF Kirkby
Oh,
now,
right.
up in Lincolnshire.
Is that the same design for the control tower?
Yeah, and it's
Square, yeah.
nice control tower, nicely painted.
Well, the one on Memphis Belle had already been modernised with the glass sort of fanning out.
Yeah.
So we had to build over it because
Yeah.
we couldn't shut down. It was an emergency airfield. It
Right.
originally was where the Red Arrows were landing and all that, but it had to keep open. And these guys were there manning it all the time, you know, through the daylight hours. So we couldn't sort of shut it down, but we had to make it look like it was the standard sort of wartime control tower by building over it.
Who's one of the nicest actors you've ever come across?
Well, Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks. Everybody says that.
Yeah.
And if he's watching, do you think Tom should give us a hand on Paratrooper? That'd be nice if he could help us out.
And
There is an Indiegogo page, Tom.
There
if
is
you
a
wanna check
link between us all, Tom, because you're on one side, we're on the other, and we're sort of intertwining our stories here a little bit from the American
Yeah.
side to the British side. So the genre is all good.
I know for a fact he's busy well past the anniversary next year,
Yeah.
75th anniversary of D-Day, because I was wondering if he would be coming, but no, he's busy all
Yeah.
the time.
Well, always shooting stuff. I followed his career since he was in Bachelor Party. Sorry, Tom.
Oh,
I know,
wow.
I know you don't like people mentioning that film, but I saw that as a double bill with Revenge of the Nerds. And he did a lot of improv, I could see in the performance on Bachelor Party, and he was so good. I was like, this is an actor whose career I've got to follow. So I watched every single film he ever did after that. I've seen all of them, mate. The Man with One Red Shoe, everything, all the early stuff that you did. Volunteers with John Candy and Tim Thomason, one of my other favourite actors. So, okay, so we're going to have to wrap up soon.
wind up,
So
right?
Can I
let's
just
see.
say the best acting of any actor, and Tom Hanks does it well, is when they're saying nothing and the whole story is in the
In the
facial
face,
expression.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he gets rescued from being captive on the boat, and
That's right.
Yeah, and he's in shock.
On the beach.
No, where he goes in, and that nurse was a American nurse who did all the bandage and
Right.
a real nurse.
A real nurse.
Yeah. And
So this is in Saving Private Ryan or a different
what's
film?
the film?
No, it was in the one that he done with the on the ship when he played the
Captain.
yeah, the captain. We've got technically.
Oh, Captain Phillips.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
used a lot of
That's
a
right.
lot of local people for that. They used
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Never acted before.
Yeah.
And that was the advice. Funny enough, I've got to say that Tom did give them on set, and he said to her, "It's all about the inner dialogue, not about what you say."
Yeah.
And he did say to me, "If you're going to say anything, just before you speak, swallow first, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Give yourself
Yeah.
a bit of time in between your dialogue." But he done really
Because
well with that.
you have to. I mean, I always get told, and I tell actors in my acting workshops that I do from time to time, need to do another one of them, just don't have time. But the first thing I always teach them is, it's not just about what you say, you've got to be thinking in character.
Exactly.
You can't just
Yeah.
deliver the lines.
Yeah.
You've got to be thinking. You've got to be in the moment. You know, the character's got to be in your mind, in your head, so that everything that you're saying is also behind your eyes. It's always about what's behind your eyes in the performance. You've got to think the feelings.
Funny you
not-
say that
not
because
just
when I was
express them.
teaching yesterday, we come across exactly what you're talking about there, and I was saying to two students yesterday, actually say the lines in your head, but talk about something else that's happening in the scene before you deliver your line. So you're already in the moment when it comes across, you know.
See, every
So
art
it's
director really has a burning director inside them,
very much so.
waiting to get out. Alan Tompkins.
No.
Any
Bit of a
questions
jack
for
of all
Alan while we're
trades.
on here?
So
Steve?
do we have any
more
last?
questions?
If we've got any
Fire
questions
them up.
for Alan before we go?
One for you. How many times are you going to change your hat?
I've only got one.
Have you
hat.
seen how many hats he's got? Seriously, he's moved his wife out. moved
Yeah,
his
more
hats
whether
in.
you've had some ideas that were rejected originally and then revisited, but I'm sure that's for many projects that you've been on. You have to
Yeah.
adapt everything you
Quite
do.
often.
Yeah,
All comes down to budget.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still involved? You still involved in films
No, not at
now?
all. No, I
No?
retired
Keep
after
your eye in.
Casino Royale.
Apart from being an unofficial advisor on Paratrooper, of course, we'll be crediting him for
It
the
must
credits.
be a magical time. It must be to step back into every time you do, and every part you walk past has got a memory.
It's what they call a sort of dream
It is.
factory, isn't it?
Unbelievably.
Yeah, a quick story. A friend who organised the return to Hoth up in Finster for Empire Strikes Back. He said he wanted to come and visit the studio. I said, yeah, well, we can arrange that. So he flew in, stayed in London Hotel, came here. I took him on the... Sometimes you can come to Pinewood and see nothing. I took him on the back lot, and there was this medieval set, about 300 people in costume, going round the market, in the market square, and there were 4 horses in armour, with the men in armour with pikes, going into the castle gate. And I thought, wow, he's lucky to see all this.
And Alan had arranged all that for him. They weren't actually filming anything.
What are we getting,
I
Alan?
can't wait to see what we're seeing today.
And then he dropped the bombshell with the director of this film, which was Maleficent, was his best buddy.
I knew it was Maleficent.
Yeah. And I thought, oh wow, why didn't he say that at the beginning? And, they were marvellous. I mean, the only time in all my years here, I had guest chairs, a monitor to watch, and they kept bringing up coffee and lovely cakes.
Yeah.
But girls, we are going to wind this up, guys. It's roasting at him
It's
Friday.
right, we-
He's sitting on the blaze of the sun,
Alan's-
so we're going
Alan's
to get you back
getting burned.
inside. So thank you very much for being with us all today. We really appreciate all your support. It's a big goodbye from me.
You can share this.
Goodbye
You
from
can,
me.
you can share this live interview wherever you want. Historical forums, World War II forums. Just put the link for this interview up with the incredible Alan Tomkins, who's giving us his time for free today. I'm not sure if we're buying him lunch or he's getting us
four,
lunch.
And 4 books.
But he's
and
given us 4 books.
As well.
4 books of his. If you would still, if you haven't put up an amount you'd like to bid for a book, I think we've had a few people bid for books. Do that now.
And we will pick the 4 highest off of you guys.
We will pick the 4 highest, and then you can make that donation to the Indiegogo later.
Take a look at this guy's IMDb. Make sure you're sitting down when you do it, though, because I had to.
Read the reviews for the book on Amazon as well.
Very
Fantastic
impressive.
Reviews.
Very impressive.
I was just making a living to pay the mortgage.